Welcome back to another edition of the Night Report podcast. I'm your co-host, Mike Broadbent. Joining me once again is my co-host, Richie Schneiderate. Richie, we got a bit of a grab bag today. We're going to talk some football spring practice. We're going to talk some basketball news. We're going to talk some tennis news, believe it or not. Talk some Rutgers wrestling news. But let's just kind of dive right into it. So we're at week 2 of spring practice 2023. Rutgers had its yearly let the assistant coaches talk kind of sessions last week. So the reporters there heard from the offensive coordinator, Kirk Soraka. They heard from defensive coordinator, Joe Harris-Simiak. They heard from new wide receivers coach, Dave Brock, and a few players also spoke. Just kind of tell us what you heard from the coaches. Let's start with Harris-Simiak.
Harris-Simiak didn't really say a ton per se. He mentioned some things here and there about the defense. He obviously likes having Toure and Moses Walker back. That's huge for that defense, especially given the fact that they had, 2 linebackers all last year? Now you have a full linebacker corps again.
Yep.
There's not really a whole lot to be taken away from any of these interviews. I hate to say that, and especially because we only speak to these guys once a year. He seems confident. He definitely wants to build on what he did last season. They had one of the better defenses in the Big Ten last season, and the only downside is they're on the field so much, so it's hard to really get a full grasp of how good this defense really could be, and I don't know if it really changes that much this season either.
Yeah, somebody also asked what Mo Toure's plan was in terms of position, and he gave the, I can't answer that answer, but I'd have a hard time believing he's not rushing the passer at least 50% of the time. And I don't think they'll play him like a Micah Parsons role, but I think that's probably what he'll end up playing, like some kind of variant of that where he plays off the ball sometimes, but primarily as a pass rusher because he's too good at that to not be doing that primarily, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think they're going to go back and forth. I know they obviously moved him changed his position on the roster to linebacker after being D-end or D-line, whatever it was last year. I honestly think, like you said, he's too good of a pass rusher not to have him pass rush. He's still the best one on the team by far, I think. I don't think that's a question. I know Aaron Lewis obviously had a pretty good season, but if you have him on one side and Toure on the other, it's a formidable pass rush attack, especially when you add in Wesley Bailey, who was starting to show some glimpses of potential too. So it's I think he goes back and forth no matter what. But this kind of also allows you, with your linebacker core finally healthy, it allows you to actually play a 4-3, and that you probably wanted to from the beginning. But last season you had 2 guys, literally 2 scholarship players, or 2 guys with experience, I should say. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. I know they just want to correct some stuff he said in the press conference, and that's really all it is. I don't think you change much based on last season.
Yeah, they had a pretty good defense. It's just they were a little bit let down by their offense being on the field so much. So it's a good pivot to what did the new offensive coordinator Kirk Soraka say in his interview?
Kirk is a man of many words. He says a lot without saying anything, and that's going to be the kind of consensus with every assistant coach. They're not allowed to say much. We're not allowed to report much, and that's just kind of, it is what it is. There's really not much to say there. He spoke highly of Gavin Wimsatt. The question before the answer was mostly centered around Wimsatt, so don't overthink it. Although I do still think Wimsatt wins this job by easily. That's not saying much though, because the quarterback room in general is weak. It's green. They mentioned Johnny Shepard. I know everyone's talking about how his eyes perked up, and he was talking about Johnny, and it's like, dude, he's a freshman. He's got some talent, but he's so far away from starting in the Big Ten, in my opinion. I think he's a couple years away from even playing a snap. So I do think he redshirts at the end of the day, pending some kind of crazy, knock on wood, some kind of crazy injury thing going on with the first 2 quarterbacks. But they haven't said a whole lot. Like, it's kind of just been quiet. Well, I shouldn't say he hasn't said a whole lot. He said a whole lot without saying a whole lot.
Yeah, he was very he was talking about how so much of this is just installing the offense right now. And, that's from the the freshman who's here in his first few weeks of working or being at Rutgers to, the fifth-year senior, they're all learning a new offense. So it's, getting terminology right, getting like positioning on the field right, getting formations down. It's a lot of just like basic learning, and they can't really judge how a guy looks in that offense until they understand the fundamentals of it. So it's not unexpected for him to not really have firm opinions on players yet, because honestly, nobody really knows. So that's TBD.
Like the worst part is we talked to him after practice number 2, and I wish we got the OC at practice number 12, not 2. But I don't want to say it's strategically planned like that, but it's strategically planned like that, I would assume. So we don't learn a lot from talking to the guys. They got to see them literally throw in 2 practices, and it's most of the time they don't even have like pads, like it's spider tech pads or whatever you want to call them. It's like a false pad almost. So there's not a lot going on. Like it's in spring ball at the end of the day, like it's supposed to be able to build hype, and it's just there's not a lot of hype right now.
Yeah, and that's partially due to how Greg wants it to be in terms of limiting information that is allowed to be discussed, which is minimal. So anything that is seen is basically off limits. So it's hard to really develop hype for a program when nobody's allowed to say anything, and we've been struggling the last few years. Now, it doesn't mean we've made no progress, because I do think there was some evidence of progress the last few years. It's just in football, everything's so binary. You either won the game or you didn't. A 4-8 season is a 4-8 season, even if you lost 3 of those games by single digits and were leading in more than half your games. Ultimately, doesn't matter. It's what your record is at the end of the year. But we're not getting blown out by 50 points regularly anymore. It happens still occasionally, but not nearly at the frequency it used to. We're not, taking the 50-point shellacking from a down Wisconsin team anymore. But
it's true. We didn't even talk about Dave Brock, and I actually thought Dave Brock was the most real of all the interviews so far.
Yeah. Yep.
He was funny when he walked up. Like he said, like, because they put us on the left side of the camera, so like we don't interrupt the camera or whatever, and all the lighting and all that nonsense. And he walks up and he's like, "Hey guys, you're all on my good side today." And it's like, "Yeah, no, I didn't want to get you on that side, coach." Blah blah blah. He's just a funny dude. I know. I talked to a former Rutgers head coach about him before the interview, and he mentioned too that he's a hilarious guy. He just made joke after joke about him being old. We brought up his experience. He's like, "Whoa, hey, don't be saying that. I've been coaching for 30 years or something like that. Relax." Like he's just a funny dude, and he was real. And I want to preface this by saying everyone that's roasting me for asking the same exact question about Rochelle again, he didn't give much detail in the first one. I had a story or Chris had a story on Rochelle. We needed a better quote, so I asked it again, and he gave us a better quote. He talked about how Rochelle was used as a running back, as a punt returner, which most people didn't know about, as a wide receiver. He mentions Nassim Brantley as an outside guy. He was probably the most talkative and will be the most talkative guy out of all of spring. I just don't think maybe he didn't get the media training that everyone else got. Maybe he just was kind of like, I don't care. What if I tell him Nassim Brantley's on the outside? Like, no shit. Like,
yeah, he's the biggest receiver we have and the most experienced, despite, him only being here a few weeks. But he played on the outside at Western Illinois. He played on the outside at Sacred Heart. Guess what? He's probably going to play out here.
He's a slot receiver now.
Yeah.
Like, but he was good.
So speaking of wide receiver, we reported last week that we were having a wide receiver transfer portal visitor. Did he make it onto campus? And have you heard anything about how that went? That was Jaquay Jackson.
Yes, he did.
University of California, Pennsylvania.
Yeah,
the Vulcans.
The Vulcans. I talked to him. He said, let's see, where's the text? Dude, that visit was perfect. Built a pretty good relationship with the staff. Loved everything about it. Loved the OC, wide receivers coach, all that, blah, 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 invest in preparing him. I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up at Rutgers. The longer it takes, the less confident I am. I actually thought it would have happened by now. but
That's
I'm not
the
really
Kurtang vibes where everything sounds awesome right after the visit, but
yeah.
a few days turn into a few weeks, turn into a few months, and it's pretty
And
obvious at that point.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. Maybe they want to build a little bit of hype and try to get him committed like in the next week ahead of spring game or 2 weeks, whatever it is.
Now, if he did commit, can he
Mhm.
enroll and start participating in spring practice, or would he have
No.
to be a summer enrollee? Okay.
You have to be a summer enrollee, which is fine. Like, there's no rush really, I guess, there. But I still think he's one of your top receivers immediately. Him and Brantley would be wide receivers 1 and 2, in my opinion. Maybe Rochelle is like a do-it-all type of guy too. Chris Long's going to be in there, factored in somehow. And I think that's your wide receiver group for the most part. Maybe some of the other guys get a couple catches. Maybe Isaiah Washington all of a sudden shows up. But for the most part, I don't see any weapons on this team in terms of wide receivers. And then that's a big factor right now. It's a little scary. So
Yeah, I know the staff. I mean, not talking about wide receivers, but I know that they're very high on Victor Konopka, and he went down early last season. And Greg specifically mentioned him. How he, somebody said that you lost him midway through the season. He's like, we only had him for a quarter of the season. He went down, I think, versus Temple with an injury, and he never really came back. Mike Higgins was on the Rutgers Instagram. I don't know if you saw that highlight reel catch he had. And then we have the running backs, obviously, are probably the deepest position on the offense. So you got to hope that one of the tight ends develops into an actual weapon because that's really, those guys have size, they have speed, they have like what you look for in a prototype of a tight end. They just haven't really done it on the field. So you got to hope between a guy like Mike Higgins or Victor Konopka, one of those guys really blossoms. Because, I mean, we met Vic at the Geo's watch party for the Knights Society. That dude is fucking huge. Like, we're both pretty tall guys. He towered over us. He is probably legit 6'6". He is massive.
Yeah, no, he's a big dude. Tight end wise, I know they like Victor, but Victor's got to develop more, in my opinion. Johnny, I think he is what he is. I don't think there's really much more of a ceiling for him. And then Mike Higgins is young, so you got to just hope you can develop him too. I still think you need a tight end in the portal. I think that without a doubt, you need somebody there. I don't know, especially because Soraka is very well known for running 2 tight end sets. Yep. And these guys are going to get gassed quickly. And I just don't know, like, do you put Johnny and Victor out there and just kind of hope and pray? Or it's end of the day, you need a lot from the portal still. Like, you need a wide receiver, in my opinion. You need a tight end. You need at least 1 lineman, at least, if not 2. So, I mean, he didn't have any offense or 1 offensive transfer. And it's Nassim Brantley who broke his foot or did something with his foot in November. Like, it's got to do something here. Like, I think this team needs a lot of help still on offense.
I think it's pretty telling that, Coach Flats comes in. And obviously, he did work with the team last year. Who knows how much input he had or what he actually did. He was consulting for Rutgers football last year. Immediately after he gets hired, Willie Tyler's in the portal, who started every game at left tackle last year for us. We have a ton of young guys. It wouldn't surprise me if Flats is just mixing and matching all camp just to see what guys can play, who he could rely on, who can be like a swing tackle, who can go inside, outside. Because, I mean, you kind of got to make, for lack of a better term, chicken salad out of chicken shit right now. Not that these guys aren't talented, but they're young, they're green, and the offensive line was not good last year. And we lost a starter. We lost J.D. Dorenzo, who was the best lineman to the NFL draft. We need a lot of guys to kind of mature very quickly, or we need to go deeper into the portal.
Yeah, you're not kidding. I mean, like you just mentioned, they're missing a tackle right now. There's guys like Kamar Missouri who played significant snaps at tackle. Tyler Needham's been a young guy that's up and coming. Dante Chin flashed a little bit last year.
Holland Pierce,
but they're all young. They don't have. Well, Holland Pierce is going to be the 1 starter at tackle, obviously, but the other tackle's position is it's extremely green. Like, there's no experience whatsoever. The guard spots, you obviously bring back Dunlap. He's going to be good. Iron Brown, I think, found his home at center. And then that other guard spot, it's extremely green. You don't have anyone with experience or And I think that's going to hurt Rutgers a ton this year. I know everyone's like, yeah, like the only reason Kirk ran the ball so much with Minnesota last year is because they had Muhammad Ibrahim. The only reason he's going to run the ball that much this year is because they don't have a line. They don't have time to pass. So it's just going to be run, in my opinion. It's just setting up for a rough year if you don't hit that portal hard before fall.
Absolutely. And so the second portal window opens, I believe, in about a month. I think right when the spring practice window ends, and Rutgers decided intentionally to start everything really late this year to help install the offense, I think is what Greg said, where you give as much time leading up to spring practice as possible so guys can get familiar with the new offense before you actually get on the field and start, doing things. You can learn a lot in the classroom. You can learn a lot from different studying materials that they were given. So
I think they do it also because of recruiting wise, because everyone's going on visits all April and March.
That's
and
true.
Now it's like, hey, there's only one spring game left at the end of April. Let's go watch that. And you can get no one's busy. They're all open. Everyone else is done with spring practice. There you go. You get everyone on campus at once. So definitely helps. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, for sure. So that's kind of all we've got on football for right now. Stay tuned because I don't know. It's so tough because you can't. There's so much that they don't allow you to say that it's, you have to kind of tiptoe around what you say. I don't really know anything because I'm not at practice, but you just kind of got to wait for what's reported on, and what Schiano says is half of what you're allowed to talk about. It's literally just direct quotes and expounding upon that. So when's Schiano next scheduled to speak to the media?
He's going to speak Saturday after the first scrimmage.
Okay, so this Saturday, the 8th, is the first scrimmage?
Yes, correct.
So another interesting little wrinkle to that is that some of you are aware that Knights of the Raritan have different tiered perks. And this Saturday, they actually have, if you're a $100 a month donor or higher, they have offered to allow you to attend as a VIP guest. Now you have to, if you are in that tier, you should have gotten an email. You have to reserve by tomorrow, which is Thursday the 6th. So if you have not reserved yet and you are a $100 a month donor for Knights of the Raritan, please make sure, if you'd like to go, to respond to that email, because you're not going to be able to just walk up. But just wanted to shout out Knights of the Raritan because that's a cool perk that they offer to their members.
Definitely hop in on that. We'll see you there.
Let's pivot to basketball, though. Paul Mulcahy, we were unsure about his future, and he announced recently that he is entering the NBA draft while also preserving his college eligibility. Tell us what you're hearing about Paul.
So it sounds like Paul's more than likely going to be back. I'm going to putting it in the nicest way possible. He's not draftable. There's just no way around it. He didn't even have that good of a season. I know he struggled at the end, especially, but I don't see him going to the NBA draft. Could he go overseas and make some significant money? Yeah, of course he could. But it sounds like he's going to come back for another year. Now, what kind of role is he going to be in? That's the intriguing part. We know Rutgers wants a point guard in the transfer portal, and I think that would probably be your main ball handler for the most part. And I think Paul probably plays a little more off-ball facilitator type role. He's gotten better at that corner three too, so that's only going to help open things up. Factoring Gavin Griffiths and Mawat Mag coming back, and I know we talked about it the other day. There's one. Which lineup was it? It was Mulcahy and Mag, right? That was one of the better lineups in the country.
I wanted to do a whole post on that on the board.
Okay, so we'll hold off then if you want.
Nah, it's fine. So there's a site called evanmaya.com. I know I've referenced it before, but they have lineup ratings.
Mm-hmm.
Now, to not go into overall statistics too much, but basically they have an efficiency rating per 100 possessions. How many points would you score based on all these advanced analytics? So the lower the score is for your defense efficiency, the better. That means you're allowing fewer points. And the higher your efficiency is on offense, the better. That means you're scoring more points. Now, that being said, they offer the ability to select between lineups. So you could do 2-man lineups, 3-man lineups. Like when those two guys are on the court together, what is their efficiency numbers? And when all these guys are on the court, what are their efficiency numbers? Now, if you look at the efficiency numbers for like guys who are on the court in high volume, so in terms of high volume, I mean over 270 possessions on the season, the 5-man lineup with Mawot Mag, Caleb McConnell, Paul Mulcahy, Cliff Omarui, and Cam Spencer are in the top 10 in Division I basketball for their overall adjusted team efficiency. Now, if you just look at the 2-man lineups, it's even more staggering. Paul Mulcahy and Mawot Mag have the highest team efficiency margin in the entire Division I basketball. That's out of 353 teams. Those two guys together, when they're on the court, had the highest efficiency margin in the NCAA. Insane. And if you look at all these different statistics, these 3-man lineups, 4-man lineups, 5-man lineups, Mawot Mag is carpet bombed through all these. He is such an important piece, and the advanced analytics just kind of highlighted even further. Like he was the number 2 3-man lineup, and that was Mawot Mag, Paul Mulcahy, and Cliff Omarui. And if you look at just defensive stuff, these guys are by far the best. When you combine the two, they're near the top. In terms of 4-man lineups, Rutgers has I think the 9th ranked lineup between Mag, Mulcahy, Cliff, and Spencer. So just insane how important Cliff or Mawot was, and losing him, it shouldn't surprise us that we kind of fell off as much as we did. But yeah, I'll have an article, or not an article, I'll write up a post about it because I think it's pretty staggering in general.
Yeah, no, it's kind of crazy how much Mawot Mag meant to this team. And like I think you mentioned it on here before, out of all the entire roster you could afford to lose for a little bit, and he was one of 3 that you could not afford to lose. So it sucks what happened, and kind of left him out of the tournament because of it. But sounds like next year him and Paul might be back on the court together again. So yeah,
and if you just look at Paul's stats, like what do you think Paul shot from 3 this year?
Probably not great, but it's probably in the 30s, 34, 35.
37%. On about 2 threes per game. So not super high volume, but he did take, 54 threes and he made 20 of them. And that's right in line with his career numbers. Like he's a career 36.4% 3-point shooter. Now, obviously the more volume you take, if you're taking 2 a game, it probably means that you're probably taking like open looks. Now, if you up that, you're probably going to reduce your percentages, but obviously you'll make more ideally. So if Paul, took 3-4 a game, you probably would shoot 33%, but that's still way better than everybody else, or not everyone else in the team. Most of the guys on the team, like Caleb and Derek Simpson, both shot under 22% this year from 3 on fairly high volume, on 60 plus attempts each.
Yeah, I was going to say, aren't they like bottom 25 or bottom 30 in NCAA?
Yeah. Yep. There was I think it was 13 guys in the NCAA this year who shot more than 63 point attempts and made under 22% of them. And Rutgers had 2 of those guys in Derek Simpson and Caleb McConnell.
So, and you're going to replace McConnell with Gavin Griffiths, who might be the best shooter in his recruiting class. So offense up, defense down. The name of the game is offense now, so should be interesting.
Yeah. And speaking of interesting, there's a few portal names I think that are interesting for Rutgers. One is Aaron Estrada, who entered the portal yesterday. He was Hofstra's point guard. He didn't have a great game against Rutgers in the NIT game. He fouled out with 8 minutes left in the second half. But this was a guy who won Conference Player of the Year, I think 2 years in a row. I think he won it this year and was first team all conference 2 years in a row, maybe it was.
Let's just shut that one down. That one's not happening.
No,
serious NIL involvement. Former Oregon kid, now at Hofstra. Well, not anymore. She used to be at Hofstra. He's heard from Alabama, Arkansas, Florida State, Georgetown, Kansas State, Ole Miss, Seton Hall, Tennessee. What do all those guys? Washington State. What do all those schools have in common? NIL. And I hate to say it, Rutgers does not have NIL. So it's that's just the name of the game with the portals, with portal guys, and it's going to be extremely tough to land these guys. I think you're going to have to go down a level a little bit and go towards the. You're going to try to have to get a New Jersey native kid. I know Estrada is, but he's going straight NIL. You're going to have to get like one of the Cam Spencer types or like an Andre Hyatt where you had a relationship previously. And that's Rutgers' best bet in terms of landing these prospects. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough in the portal. And we've said this from day one, and nothing's really changed.
Yeah, it seems like Rutgers hasn't really been connected with a ton of portal guys that have entered the portal. There's still a ton of time for guys to do it. They have more than a month to enter the portal before the window closes. And again, that's only for a guy to hop in the portal. You don't have to decide in this window. You just have to enter it by May 11th, I believe, in order to actually be able to use the transfer portal.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's still a whole another month left of portal entries. So guys are just, I don't really know what guys are waiting for at this point. Like maybe just kind of seeing where the roster is in terms of makeup. And like, I know there's a lot of decisions still to be made about NBA coming back, etc. But you're kind of at the point where you probably should be in the portal by now if you want to go anywhere at this point. So,
yep.
We'll see. Wait and see what happens. There's new people entering every single day. Like you just said, Estrada just entered yesterday? And he was the CAA, I think that's the conference they're in, player of the year. So, yeah, we'll just kind of wait and see. And it's all about patience. Just got to be really patient. And they're going to reach out to guys. They're going to miss on guys. They're going to land someone eventually. It's just a matter of who and when.
Absolutely. Let's talk some high school recruiting, though, and not anybody necessarily specifically, but just kind of a big event that happened over the weekend.
Yes.
The USA Junior National men's basketball team had a minicamp in Houston to kind of match up with the Final Four. And it was a who's who of top prospects throughout the country. They also had multiple recruiting class years there. So it was kids between the classes of 2024 and 2026. And there was a ton of media members there. And it seemed that Ace Bailey was one of the top attendees by far. He was getting shouted out from everybody. If you saw any clips about his performance, it was just, he was blowing past guys. He was hitting pull-ups. He was dunking on dudes. He was playing great defense. What did you hear about Ace Bailey's performance from this past weekend?
Yeah, it's kind of in line with what we've been saying for the most part. I talked to someone that's near the top of the recruiting rankings, and he kind of said the same thing. It's he had Ace Bailey as his number one before this even happened. As long as if Ace was healthy during the AAU season last year, he probably would be number one or number two on most boards. I think the fact that he was injured kind of hurt his ranking a little bit. I know it's not supposed to per se, but it's hard to get, like, your junior year is when you kind of get those rankings, when you kind of figure out who's who, what their potential is. And when you don't get to see him against the best of the best, it kind of hurts your ranking a little bit. So now, I mean, he's still 3, 4, whatever he is.
He's in the top 5 of every recruiting service at this point. Maybe not ESPN, but ESPN's is trash anyway, so I don't really care.
They're so fucked. I don't understand why or how they don't invest more into it, but whatever, less competition for us. Yep. Ace Bailey is 4 right now for us. I still think he's just going to go up higher. And then he's going to go to the AAU season this year, and he's going to take off. It's just going to be like, holy shit, like, wow, like no one knew this kid was this good. Like everyone knew he was that good. He just was injured. Like if he wasn't injured, I'm telling you, he would be number one in his class. And I think after that little performance, people are going to look at it and be like, oh shit, we underrated this kid. Underrated at 3 and 4. Like it's, and they might not even be, they might get another top 3 kid, top 4, whatever he is.
Excellent transition, because another one of the top performers from this event was Dylan Harper, who, if you guys haven't heard, Ron Harper Jr. has a younger brother named Dylan. He might be a good recruit. I don't know. He's top 5 also. Plays Don Bosco. So one of the things that I heard from this event was how physically mature he looked compared to his competition. I was reading that, looking at him, he had like the most college-ready body of any of the guards at the event. Like he just looked like he had put on some really good weight. He was muscular. He was able to finish around the rim. And if you've seen him play, like that is, he is a great finisher. He just he takes contact really well and is able to make a ton of really difficult shots. Not necessarily like Kyrie Irving level of, crazy flexibility at the rim, but just, hard contact and able to put up, good shots and make them with a really high level of efficiency. He's also got a pretty good outside shot. He's a lefty. And he gave some interviews after this that sounded really good for Rutgers. What did you hear about Dylan at the event?
He's not a lame like fucking Bronny James avoiding the media and shit. Like what was that? How would you? You're such a coward. Like, stop. You're not that important. You're like the number 50-something ranked recruit, Bronny. Relax. Like, sorry, that shit pissed me off because it's like, come on. Like, everyone's there specifically. You're only in the game because of who your father is, if you want to be honest. Yeah, you hit 2 open threes. Congrats. But screw him. We're talking about a top 5 player over here. Top 3 player, actually, per Rivals. Dylan spoke very highly of Rutgers. It's been everyone was posting about how Ace Bailey's interviews all mentioned about how he's recruiting Dylan Harper. Everyone was talking about how he's like literally in Dylan Harper's ear during like these warm-ups and practices and stuff. I think Rutgers has. I've been saying it from the get. Rutgers has a really good shot at Dylan Harper. Been very consistent with that. I don't see that changing. He's still going to take those visits, like I mentioned on the boards. He's going to go to Auburn. He's going to go to, what was the other one? I don't even remember what it was.
I think.
Kansas. And cool. Like Auburn's tough because they have a lot of NIL, but I don't see NIL being a factor here. I think it's Rutgers or Duke with Rutgers in the lead right now. And I don't see it changing. Like, I really don't. I think Rutgers has a top 5 class right now, top 4 class maybe. And you had Dylan, you had Ace, you had Delquan Warren, who's looking better and better every time people watch him play. And then you could add anyone like Lathan Somerville, Donnie Freeman. Like, you're going to have a top 5 class, I think, when it's all said and done, if not higher.
Yeah. So Adam Zagoria, who's a very connected and seasoned basketball reporter in the area, I was talking to Ace Bailey, and Ace said that he's working hard on getting Dylan to Rutgers. In a separate interview that Dylan gave, Ace Bailey came up behind as Dylan was getting interviewed and just started talking up Rutgers. Dylan, in one of his quotes, he said, "Rutgers is home." And that's a really positive quote, and it shouldn't really surprise anybody. Like, Dylan's been going to Rutgers basketball games probably since he was in middle school, if not earlier. Because you got to think, like, what was Ron? He was a class of 2017 or 2018 kid?
I think 2018, but I could be wrong on that. 2018,
okay,
yeah.
So Ron's probably been going to schools for visits since 2015, 2016. His mom and little brother are tagging along. So Dylan's probably in like 6th or 7th grade, and that's when his relationship started building with Pike. That's a relationship now that's 6-7 years old, and for a kid who's 16, that's like half his life that he's known Pike and has been close to that family. So it's funny seeing Duke fans rationalize why Rutgers is in this race without understanding that, like, this kid has been to dozens of Rutgers basketball games. He's hung out with basketball players at Rutgers for his entire life. Like, remember what Gio was saying that, half the team stayed at Ron's place during COVID, and it was like the little brother of the group. So he's been ingrained in Rutgers basketball and Rutgers basketball culture for half of his life. So he knows exactly what he's getting into with Pike. He knows it's no bullshit. He's seen it with his brother. Ron goes out of his way to come back to Rutgers as much as possible. Ron goes out of his way to hype up Rutgers at every turn. Like, he is a true believer. The family is a true believer. And now it's just up to Dylan to kind of decide what's right for him. And it sounds really positive for Rutgers, and we still have that official visit, and it sounds like, and this is another nugget that dropped from this event, Dylan said he wants to decide after Peach Jam. And Peach Jam is an annual AAU tournament that happens in Georgia each summer. This year it's happening over July 4th weekend, which is July 6th to the 9th. So the decision date is probably in that week after that, so middle of July, just to kind of put it on everyone's radar. So Rutgers has their official visit, which will probably happen, if I had to guess, in June. Early June. This is usually when they take those visits. So because that's like after high school ends and before AAU season really ramps up. So that's a good window for basketball to take visits. So I don't know. I feel really good about it. I've only felt better, as the Duke visits have kind of passed for Dylan.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like he's going to, like, I'm not going to say isn't going to, but it sounds like he might not go visit there again either. And that's it's very telling. I think this is the fact that he hasn't taken the Rutgers official yet tells you everything right there. They're going to save that one for last. It's going to be the big visit. Everyone's going to hype it up. Duke fans are going to be like, oh, whatever, man. Like, doesn't matter. But, like, no, you lost out to Rutgers. Like, I hate to say it, but I really am very confident here. And I think between Harper, between Bailey, between Warren, like, Warren doesn't get enough talk, in my opinion. He's going to be such really a good point guard for them.
He's another lefty, too.
Yeah, adding Gavin Griffiths, and it's like, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, it's you have to kind of pinch yourself every once in a while thinking of the amount of talent that Rutgers is going to have at Jersey Mike's Arena in 2 years. I mean, next year they're going to be very good too. Like, I think they're, assuming that we get a few pieces in the portal, I don't think there's any question they're a tournament team. But
yeah,
that next year is like assuming that, guys like Gavin come in and make an impact and improve by year two, a guy like Dirk Simpson takes a step up. Hell, like, we could get Cliff back for that year too if we can convince him. I mean, I don't think it'll happen, but he has 2 years of eligibility left. We shall see.
I find it interesting that, like, they're still not a big man. Like, they need a true big man. Like, I don't know who they're going to get. Maybe Portal, maybe Woolfolk develops, but it's going to be interesting where they go with that.
Yep, definitely. Let's hit a little bit of a grab bag here. So yesterday they broke ground on the women's tennis facility, which seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. Is this a situation where, and Pat Hobbs said this when we interviewed him, that, you have a plan, but if a donor comes to you who's all about sport X and it wasn't necessarily the number one priority, but he's like, or she is like, I want to donate X amount of dollars towards X sports facility, that helps get the wheels moving. Do you think this is an example of that kind of situation with the tennis facility?
I don't know where this really came from, but if you listen to Pat Hobbs speaking on the Rutgers tennis Twitter account, he there's like a whole little video about everything. And he did mention, he's like, this thing's going to get put together really fast. It's going to be on I believe it's Livingston campus is where they're moving it to. Right now, Rutgers does not have a facility for tennis. They go to East Brunswick Racket Club for their home matches. That's an atrocity for any, like, Power 5 school. I think that's just such a bad look, and the fact that they're getting this built and it looks, based on artist renderings, I could probably show you real quick. Where do I go for this? Where is it? Screen, window, there it is. And it kind of looks pretty, no, it's not loading. Cool. It looks pretty sick. I'm not going to lie. Like, with all this stuff, whatever this is, like this whole tennis facility, and then they're going to build side courts for practice, I would assume, over here, and this would be game day stuff. It's definitely Livingston, because I think that's the volleyball net right there.
Yep.
Because I believe that's over there by the I forget what building it is, but overall, like, this is going to be huge for Rutgers. And then the biggest thing no one's talking about is that the tennis courts are right next to the Hale Center. They're getting moved. So what does that mean? We heard rumors of it last offseason. I mentioned on the boards. That's where they looked into putting the football facility where the tennis courts are currently. But I was told there wasn't enough space. It was too close to the hill right there. So I heard it wasn't going to be possible there, and it was going to be the yellow lot. Mind you, this was football season, this past season. Towards the end of football season, apparently, one of the donors I know mentioned that they're going to put it in the yellow lot, and it's going to be next to the blue lot and this and that. It's going to be right next to the Rockin. Maybe plans have changed since then. I don't know. I'm not in the athletic department. I'm not, like, involved in that type of stuff, but it does seem like things are starting to progress on the football side of things. And I know there's no technical plan out there. There's no rendering. It wasn't even part of the master plan. They kept it out, which I thought was interesting. But I think things are really progressing quickly in terms of Rutgers renovations.
Yeah, which is great news because ideally you got to get the shovels in the ground to actually get these things moving, and it's always just it's always a plan until you start doing something. So putting a shovel in the ground for a facility, clears out the queue ahead for the football facility and other stuff that they want to get done. And I'm sure we'll learn more about that when Pat comes back on the podcast in June. We haven't set a date for that, but we will definitely reach out to him when the time comes.
Yeah, it's amazing how bad Olympic sports were over the past, I don't even know, 30, 40, 50 years at this point. Like golf can't even host a home match because it's too short of a course. I like it because it plays better to my game, but for the Big Ten, like you can't even host a home match. Rutgers literally has not been able to host a home match for golf. That's how bad it is.
They have an 18-hole course too on campus.
Yeah, and it's like it's just too short. Like it's not regulation. They went to East Brunswick Racket Club for tennis. It's not far, but it's not close either. Like, I don't know if you know where the East Brunswick Racket Club is. It's all the way by where the Toys R Us in East Brunswick used to be on Route 1 or Route 18.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. It's almost by like the Hooters over there. It's right. Actually, it's in between the Toys R Us and the Hooters. It's like, what the I didn't even know it was there. The only reason I knew it was there is because I ironically passed it yesterday when I made a U-turn. Because I was going to Taqueria back in New Brunswick because that place is phenomenal. Holy hell. Like, that was great. But yeah, they need so much help on the Olympic side of things that this is just a start. And the fact that they're finally getting the love and getting shovels in the ground is a really good sign for not just tennis, but other sports too.
Absolutely. Next, let's talk a little Rutgers wrestling. So in a recent podcast, we kind of teased that there is a Pennsylvania Hammer on the way. We kind of talked about the level of recruit this would be, and we said he'd be a 5-star recruit in the Rivals ranking system because he's a top 25 kid. Cat is officially out of the bag. He committed last week. Connor Harrar, I believe his name is, from Montgomery, Pennsylvania. He's a 152-pound wrestler. He's a 2-time Pennsylvania state champion. He is a junior national champion as of this past year as well. This is a kid who Rutgers has been in a really good position with for a while. One of the top recruits in the country. He should be able to come in and at least compete for a job right away, if not start right away. This is a multiple All-American type kid, possible national champion level wrestler. What are you hearing about Connor, and how did this whole thing come together?
Yeah, Rutgers just pretty good relationship with Goody, to be honest, at the end of the day. And that's it started, I want to say, a year ago when they're legally when the NCAA allows them to talk to kids at his age. But Goody put in the work here. This was all Goody. He's technically 152 pounds, I think he's wrestling at. He's ranked 6 on Flow for that weight class. He's 4 on Mat Scouts. But he's projected 157 in college, I was told. So that's huge for Rutgers to get a middleweight guy of this caliber. He's 133-5 as he heads into his senior year. The 2-time state champ. This is huge for Rutgers.
And 4 of those losses came in his freshman year too. So he's lost one time in the last 2 seasons.
I have to go back. I forget what place he finished in. I think it was 6 his freshman year in the States, which is a huge alone to say the least. But then he's been dominant ever since, and I don't really see much change in there. Now he's the second commitment in the 2024 class with Alex Nini out of Christian Brothers Academy, who's also very good. He's a 133-pounder. They did lose Heinrich. I think his name was Heinrich, right? Matt Heinrich, if I recall.
I think from Southern Regional.
Yeah, so they lost him technically, but I'm told that it's actually not officially lost there. I'm being told that they still have a really good shot. He did decommit to kind of see what other, put it nicely, offers are out there. Not scholarships, but other type of offers. So we'll see what happens in that regard. It does sound like Rutgers actually has a little bit of NIL in terms of Rutgers wrestling, so we'll wait and see there. if you noticed recently, the Knights of the Raritan's kind of hyped it up a little bit. They made some kind of partnership with 3 wrestlers. All I know is it was Andy Clark and 2 others. Might have been Connor. Connor O'Neill, maybe. I forget. There's a 3rd wrestler,
something like that. Yeah.
They have some kind of partnership or some kind of deal with a certain wrestling company. So it's a really good start. And then next year's going to be interesting in terms of where Rutgers goes, because there's so many options of things you could do with your lineup. We also heard that they were in it for, I'm not even going to, how do you pronounce that name? Do you know? The Harvard kid. I think it's just.
No, I don't.
Yari?
Yeah.
I'm not even going to try it. Harvard heavyweight transfer. Put it like that. I think he finished 6th in the Big Ten, or 6th overall in NCAAs this year. He visited. Sounds like he's still going to go to Michigan. Now, I mentioned before, Rutgers has NIL, not a ton of NIL. And that's probably the main factor there, is what I heard. So it sucks there. You still need a heavyweight. I think PJ Casal's a heavyweight next year. I don't know how healthy he'll be. I do think he returns. The plan right now is Soldano at 184 and then Paz at 197. Replacing probably Billy Janzer at that 197 spot. So you have a pretty good lineup going in the next season. You return, 8 starters technically? 1, 2, 3.
I think so, yeah.
5, 6, 7. Yeah, 8 starters. So it's if you can get a heavyweight, man, this could be a really good team. But I said that, I think, before last season, and it just backfired. But Rutgers last year was just a better dual team than they were actual individuals, and that's kind of why you saw these struggles at Big Ten tournaments and NCAA tournament too. So it's gonna be intriguing to see where they go. I know X is gonna have an entire notebook of recruiting updates very soon. So just kind of wait on that, and once that comes out, we'll be able to talk a little more in depth on guys.
Do you want to go into 2 more things wrestling related before we move on here? So Connor Harrar, he has a younger brother named Brant as well, who's also a very good wrestler. He came in 2nd in the state this year as a freshman at 121 pounds. This is a kid who also won a junior national title this year at the same event Connor won one. Now that weight class is kind of loaded, and it's usually a lot of freshmen or sophomores that are in the top rankings at this weight class, because as you get older, you grow and you kind of phase yourself out of the lower levels and kind of into the mid weights. This is another kid who's like a top 20 wrestler at his weight class as a freshman. So by the time he's a senior, he'll probably be one of the top kids in the country at his weight, whatever he ends up at, whether that be in the 120s or the 130s, 140s, who knows. But another super high level recruit to keep an eye on, because I'm sure Rutgers will be recruiting him as well.
No, they're doing good with the whole brother thing between the Meany brothers and now the Harrar brothers, hopefully. Yeah,
the Ashnalts back in the day.
I forgot about them.
Yeah, another kid though I wanted to highlight. Northwestern had a kid enter the portal. Chris Collins, I believe, is that his name?
Chris Cannon.
Chris Cannon. Sorry, I think Collins is the basketball coach. Chris Cannon's a Jersey kid who entered the portal last week. What are you hearing about him? The Rutgers have a chance here.
They do have a chance, but Penn State's flying out Cale Sanderson is going to see him this week, I believe. Ironically, his dad is very close with my family, so I should have the entire lowdown on that recruitment. I know Michigan offered him, we're talking over 6 figures already. Wow. I know, So he's a 2-time All-American at 133 at Northwestern. Last year, he kind of struggled a little bit. I think he lost in the second round of the consolation bracket. He lost round 1 immediately to a Cal Bakersfield guy. Won round 1 of the consolation, and then lost in the second round of the consolation to, I want to say it was a Ryder kid, actually. But I'm not sure. I'm going to go back and look. But he's gotten significant NIL offers from several programs. Obviously, I just named Michigan. Penn State's pushing for him. Penn State has a lot of NIL in terms of wrestling. They also have the background and the resume to back it up. I know Rutgers is pushing for him because he is a Jersey guy. He trains with Sebastian Rivera's dad, Steve Rivera, down in I don't want to say South Jersey, but it's like close to South. It's like the bottom of Monmouth County. It's like it's close. It's close. It's so close.
Peak Central Jersey.
Whatever, man. The force of habit. You see the shore, and it's just like, oh, this is South. Like, I think he's actually. I think it's the bottom of. I might be wrong. Maybe it's not the bottom of South Jersey. Or bottom of Monmouth County. Whatever. It doesn't matter. You know what? Whatever. Rutgers is right there in it, but it sounds like Penn State's starting to take a little bit of a lead. And for most transfer wrestlers, it's extremely hard to say no to Penn State right now. Yeah. They're just, the resume speaks for itself. They win the title like every other year, if not every year. It's tough. So until that changes, I'll keep you guys updated on the boards in terms of Cannon, but that's really all I know for the time being.
Sounds good. Yeah. I think Penn State has won since Cale Sanderson got there. They've won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of 13 national championships. 10 of 12 national championships. That's insane. And the only other teams to literally there hasn't. This is actually crazy. So since 2007, every single team national champion came from the Big Ten Conference.
Oh yeah, I don't expect anything less at that point. The Big Ten dominates 5 of the top 7 seeds every year.
Yep. Yeah, it's essentially like take whatever the seeding is for the Big Ten championships and just superimpose that onto the NCAA championships because it's basically that. Occasionally,
more programs got into it. Like it kind of pisses me off that like the ACC is just kind of like fuck it, like it's just UNC and that's.
Well, they have like these weird years where they'll have an NC State guy win a national title. They'll have a Virginia Tech guy win a national title. Do you remember a few years ago there was a guy in Arizona State who didn't have any legs and won a national title?
Yeah,
that was crazy.
Yeah, they have to. I just feel like the sport needs to grow a little bit, and it's kind of starting to a little. I don't know if you noticed the Barstool Wrestling account.
Yeah, Jersey Jerry.
Pretty good Rutgers content on there. If you watch the first video, they only had one video release so far, but the fact that Barstool invested into a wrestling account kind of tells me that the sport might be growing quicker than I think.
I agree. There's definitely the market for it. It's just they haven't really. Especially with like how popular the MMA has gotten and how many top MMA guys come from the college wrestling ranks. Wouldn't surprise me at all if that crowd got pushed pretty heavily into college wrestling.
Yeah, no, for sure. Do you, kind of a little bit of a segue. Do you think, like, you know how like Barstool has been, they're all about Rutgers because it's close. And if they're good, they're going to be there. So they've been like at the football like tailgating scene. They've done that. They've done basketball practice. They went into wrestling practice.
The Barnstormer or the
Court Stormers.
Court Stormers were there for the
but they
Maryland
gave
game.
The all access for basketball, the all access for wrestling. You see what it does for those programs? It builds hype.
Yep.
Do you think Greg would ever have Barstool in the football facility?
Well, it's funny because PFT, sorry, he had that song he wrote about Schiano, the Schiano man. So he's a Schiano guy. Like I think Greg's just too paranoid to allow it to happen. Honestly,
I know, but it's spring ball. Like you should just invite them once. You had they had some kind of cast there yesterday. I forget who the hell it was. It's like it's the show after Saturday Night Live. I don't know who the hell runs it, but they came to practice. They let them do a bunch of stuff. Like you got to promote this thing. So I think the best way to do it, get a big media company like Barstool, which is 45 minutes away, maybe less, depending on traffic. But so I don't know. That's just me ranting a little bit.
Yeah, I mean Rutgers is the only, Power 5 school within how many hours of New York City? 2.5. How far do you have to go to hit like the Syracuses and the Boston Colleges and the Penn States?
It's UConn. Oh, Power 5, yeah. So UConn's only Power 5 though. Yeah, I guess that's probably there's no one within 2 hours, I guess. Yeah. Wow. It's crazy.
So if you want to have a big event and involve these big media companies out of New York City.
Light up.
I mean, it's a sleeping giant for a lot of reasons. Just another one being, you have access to these different companies that a lot of people don't. So,
yep.
All right, we've covered a ton here. Is there anything we didn't hit on that you wanted to touch on before we sign off?
Yeah. Shout out to Steve Owens, 1,000 career wins. Programs in a weird spot right now. Because they almost got swept by Michigan State. They avoided that one, luckily, by the Sunday win. But the bats are they're kind of there. It's the pitching. The pitching's been super questionable, and that's kind of what happens when you bring up a D2, D3. I don't even know where Lemoyne is. What is Lemoyne? D2, I guess?
I don't know, honestly.
Your D2 pitch. One of your guys is a D2 transfer from Lemoyne, D3, whatever it is. The other one's Friday starter Drew Conover was projected to be your closer, and he's your Friday starter. So maybe they got to switch some stuff there. I know some guys have been better than others. Sinibaldi's been pretty solid, it seems like. I know they won, so I can't hate on them too much. They did shut out Hofstra, but big weekend this weekend against Maryland. Maryland's I don't know where they rank in the Big Ten, but they're 17-10 on the year, so I'm assuming on the upper half because they do play a pretty hard schedule there. So you gotta snag two. If you want any chance at this NCAA tournament this year, you got to start winning, and you got to start doing it now. So we'll kind of wait and see what happens there.
Well, the weird thing is Rutgers, in terms of the RPI, is actually ranked pretty highly. So it's the metric that they use to help seed teams for the NCAA tournament. So Rutgers, in terms of the RPI, is ranked 36th right now, despite them being 15 and 13.
Right now they're 1 and 2, so they're near the bottom technically.
Yeah, it's only
bottom 4.
There's only one team ahead of Rutgers in the Big Ten in the RPI, and that's Indiana, and they're 20 and 9. They're ranked 29th in the RPI. So
it's a hell of a year.
I mean, this is basically being propped up by Rutgers playing such a difficult schedule because they really did beef it up. Yep.
Yeah, you got to do it. But you can't be losing to like Boston College and UNC Greensboro.
Yeah.
Swept by UNC Greensboro.
Well, Boston College is really good this year. Boston College is in the top 10.
Yeah. You know what sucks is that they fought so hard against UConn too, and they were leading in 2 of the 3 games, and they just blew it. And it comes down to pitching at the end of the day. You got to get this pitching situation figured out. Now, you can snag 2 out of 3 in Maryland. It's a hell of a start. And also, it will be on TV too, I forgot to mention. Friday's BTN Plus. So, yes, Saturday's Big Ten. Sunday, 1 o'clock, if you're not doing anything, ESPNU got picked up. So.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty big news for Rutgers baseball, considering most of the games are BTN Plus for the most part, which is another issue in facilities that we didn't really touch on, but they don't have the capabilities to put BTN at Battenfield. Yeah. So that's another issue. Olympic sports need help. They need tons of help. So
they're getting it though. It's just a lot of needs, and you only have so many, so much funds, and so you just have limited resources to get it done. But they're working hard.
I know they're getting there. So anyway, I think that's really it. We got some visitors this week, but nothing like huge. Couple big names include Rowan Byrne, Kenny Jones commit from the 2024 class, and one guy I'm going to keep a real close eye on that I didn't mention at all. Actually, Brahim Wynn, linebacker out of Timber Creek. He actually was recently included on my April crystal ball, which we predict the 2024 class every month. I think there's a really good shot he could walk away with an offer. He's got good size. He's got solid speed. He's only got one Power 5 offer right now, but this could be Rutgers' chance to get in early and land a linebacker and call it a day. Because you might end up having 2 linebackers in this class with Gabriel Winovich too, who potentially could play running back or linebacker, but I'd keep a close eye on him to potentially get an offer this weekend.
Interesting. So stay tuned because it sounds like there's a lot that could be happening this weekend.
Yep.
But for me and Richie, this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.